I'm joined today by three musicians of the trio Oko. Joining me, sitting to my left, is cellist Mina Kim. Welcome, Mina.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
A pleasure to have you. Next to her is violinist Emma Powell. Welcome as well.
Thank you.
And next to her is harpist Charles Overton.
Yep, thanks.
How did trio Oko form?
We've all known each other through different means, but actually all three of us were at the Summer Music Festival out at Tanglewood, the Tanglewood Music Center, in 2016, and reconnected in Boston through various means. And I don't know, we all could relate to the idea of being freelancers in the area and sort of not really having time to make music that's, I guess, a little bit less stress-inducing. You know, sometimes when what you do is what you love, but you're also doing a lot of it, it can become a little bit stressful. So we were trying to find an opportunity to both reconnect as friends, but also to make music with like no strings attached, just like let's make sound and enjoy it.
I moved to Boston actually from Korea in 2010, and I feel like this area is full of musicians to begin with, but also like so many people are dying to hear music and there's a lot happening, and I feel like naturally just started to, play for other opportunities and stuff. It makes it so much easier in this area, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So talk about your background and I suppose maybe the music scene when you were there.
I'm from like a similar town actually. It's called Busan in South Korea. It's a very southern town. It's a port city. It had like a pretty vibrant music scene, but not as much as Seoul, like aka New York City type of thing. But it still had very tight-knit community, and I think Boston has very similar feelings. Like all the musicians know each other, and there's like a very tight-knit community of musicians who play at very high level. And I don't know, being here is very inspiring.
What's your background? Where are you from? And
I grew up in Michigan, and I've been playing all my life, basically. I wasn't really planning to go into music, actually, when I was younger, but sort of just ended up that way. It was that summer, actually, at Tanglewood. I feel like that was around the turning point of when I ended up sort of wanting to go into music more. And it was a fun summer, I think, for all of us. And
the scene very different from the places you previously were at?
Yeah, I think there's, again, like Mina was saying, there's so much going on in Boston. There's a lot of musicians packed into a very small area, and there's a lot of different types of gigs and performance opportunities, and there's just so much going on, and so to sort of slowly piece together what it is that you love doing and finding people that you really enjoy working with.
So Charles, your background?
Yeah, well, I'm originally from Richmond, Virginia. I moved away when I was 15 to go to boarding school, arts boarding school at Interlochen, and also in Michigan. I think there was actually maybe a few times where we went to Ann Arbor, so we might have been in the same city
probably.
at the same time. And then I came to Boston to go to the Berklee College of Music because part of my journey in playing with the harp has been through improvisation as well, and playing different styles of music on the harp. Growing up in my program in Virginia, I was lucky that my music teacher brought in guest artists from all over the world who played the harp in such like drastically different ways. So I knew that while I loved classical music, that other kinds of music were possible to be made on the instrument. And I chose to go to Berklee primarily because while I had an interest in exploring what was outside of classical music, I think part of me knew that unless I was like forced to confront it and be immersed in non-classical music, that I wouldn't necessarily seek it out or grow in it in the way that I wanted to. And Berklee is a unique kind of music school in which there aren't majors in genres of music. Like you can't major in classical performance or jazz. You just major in performance.
If you could tell us the difference between jazz harp and classical harp.
Well, a lot of it is in the feet, actually. Harps have pedals. Not a whole lot of people know. But there's 7 pedals that control the pitches of the strings. So basically, in order to not just play the white keys, but all 12 keys on the piano, we use our feet. And so in jazz, there's oftentimes a lot more chromaticism, at least than in the standard harp repertoire. But again, maybe I spoke too soon because this one passage that, yeah,
There are exceptions.
there are certainly exceptions. But then I guess the other primary difference is how you approach it. The harp is a kind of unique instrument in that, unlike a lot of instruments, it rings until you make it stop. Like with the bowed strings, you have to apply pressure. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe,
you're great.
He's doing
you-
okay?
Yeah, he's doing good.
you take an implement and you have to draw the sound out of the instrument, or with like a wind, you have to push air into a reed that then vibrates. But with the harp, you pluck and then the sound just keeps on going. Like I know sometimes when in rehearsal, we'll pluck the low strings and just see how long they just like keep wiggling. And it's forever unless you again stop it. So in playing jazz, a lot of the articulations that jazz musicians play are even shorter than a lot of classical musicians. There's a lot of staccato, and the sort of bass line is to play short. And so there's a lot of muting of the strings. That is a new technique that I had to, or not a new technique that I invented, but a new technique to me.
Violin. Talk about your association with that instrument. How far back?
I started when I was 5, so a very long time. I always loved playing, and I always loved playing with other people a lot too. I think that was probably the thing that got me most interested in playing music in general, is just the people that I got to spend time with. I had very dedicated parents that were very, encouraging, and also a little bit like, you have to practice, but
Now you
now I
thank
look
them
back
years later
exactly.
because of where you are.
Yeah, and so, I like I said, I wasn't always planning to go into music as a job. I always enjoyed it, but I was sort of toying around with the idea of trying other stuff, and it was sort of while I was in college where I found myself coming back to music over and over as sort of like, putting off homework to go practice and go play a concert. And yeah, exactly. But just like I ended up starting some chamber music groups while I was there too. And as I was doing that more and more, it sort of naturally felt like, oh, maybe I should, just try for a little bit and see how it goes. And so far it's
Clearly,
okay.
it went
So
fine. No, I think
we're going to keep doing it until it doesn't work anymore. Yeah.
Mina, the
Yeah.
cello.
Yeah, I started about 4th grade going into 5th grade in Korea. I lived in a small town, so the teachers were pretty scarce, and my mom was really dedicated, so she drove me around everywhere to find a good teacher, which I really appreciated. But a lot of the teachers in Korea always told me that I started too late to go into string instrument, because
And you started at what age?
I started around like 4th grade, so like 11-ish,
Oh, okay.
12-ish, which feels young to me now, but yeah, I mean, I understand it's quite late for string instruments. So it was quite discouraging for a long time, but I just kept on going.
Let's talk influences. Should I say classical, but not only classical?
Yeah, my dad was really he was a vocalist at a rock band in college, and that was his dream, to become like a rocker. And my mom told him that he wasn't good looking enough for the camera. So he kind of quit and
Who
got a
told
corporate
him?
job. My mom told my dad, and he got a corporate job. So we were always listening to all these like Eagles, Journey, like Queens, like all these rock classics. And yeah, a lot of that is kind of my influence, actually. I really like playing anything other than classical. Emma and I do a lot of other type of pop music playing, or even rock music playing, and it's just so inspiring, the driving, groovy playing. I just really want to be better at also. I really enjoy doing that too.
Well, it's
Yeah.
interesting that you're able to take from other genres and apply it to the instrument.
String instruments are so versatile. I mean, obviously harp is too, but for us, the technique doesn't change like crazy amount, I would say. So I
Yeah.
feel like it's really fun exploring other genres.
Growing up, I was pretty much mostly in the classical world. I feel like my parents listened to a lot of, although I'm not sure it was because I started the violin. I think because of that, they sort of started, like I know my mom played a little bit of piano when I was younger, and so she would like play some little Mozart and Chopin stuff on the piano. before I was born, and then after I was born, she didn't play so much anymore. But it was but yeah, there was always some sort of classical music playing in the house, and yeah, I think as I got older, I got my friends sort of started introducing me to other like Taylor Swift or like whatever it is, and I do remember getting really into other just anything else, anything on the radio, and getting really excited about that too. And now it's really fun as a musician to get to incorporate all different types of styles into your musicianship.
Jean-Luc Ponty, jazz, kind of a fusion musician who played the violin. Maybe a shock for folks who think or thought that the violin was only a classical instrument.
So, yeah, my parents, neither of them are musicians. But yeah, my mom likes to famously play that she plays the CD player. But for some reason, they knew...
I played the CD player, too.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great instrument. But yeah, they put me in like kinder music classes when I was like 2 years old. Like had me listening to the Suzuki violin tapes. Like, yeah, classical music was all around the house growing up. But yeah, like I was saying earlier, my harp teacher brought around all kinds of different harpists or harp players from around the world. Like there were Celtic harpists from Ireland and Scotland. There were New Age. There was this like New Age genre harpist from Austria named Monika Stadler that was a huge influence on me. I bought her book of sheet music and learned one of her tunes, and it became like my signature song for like a while. There was a jazz harpist named Park Stickney who's still like a hero of mine. Yeah, those were some of the harpists that I was checking out early on, and it really opened my ears to all kinds of music. And I know for a long time, I really emotionally resonated with Dave Brubeck. Was like an artist that for some reason, whenever it seemed like he had music for every kind of mood there was. Like when I was feeling like moody or sad, I would listen to Strange Meadowlark, or if I was feeling upbeat or like just wanted to vibe, Rondo a la Turk, or Blue Rondo a la Turk, right?
Right. Yeah, I know you had mentioned Emma Taylor Swift, right? So
I did.
So, well,
It's on that
revisit
first playlist.
Only because I'm curious who influenced you.
My teachers were huge influences for me, I think. That was probably the biggest one, or other kids in my studio, even that. But yeah, like the CDs at home were like Hilary Hahn was on, and Nadia Salerno-Sonnenberg was kind of like the out there violinist, and I always really liked her stuff. And yeah, I was remembering when you said that your teacher had brought in somebody that one of my orchestra directors had brought in, Jeremy Kittle, who is like an amazing Celtic fiddler. And so there was just all different sorts of people that I feel like I connected with, but there was never any like one specific like musician, I guess, that I like really looked up to or anything like that. I was just kind of amazed by everything going on. Like I just loved everything. Yeah.
Mina?
Yeah, I'm kind of similar too. I feel like we had kind of a generic like classical albums from like Yo-Yo Ma, all those people like Rostropovich and Dupre, which I always loved. And it's kind of similar thing. I feel like teachers and my colleagues when I went to the New England Conservatory, just seeing so many amazing cellists of my age having such distinctive like original sound, and I think that college onward, I was like very, very inspired. Just being in the Boston area, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
How difficult is it to have talented musicians? They may be talented musicians, but it's difficult to get the collaborative sound, which clearly you don't have a problem with.
Yeah, it can be. I think we all have experiences.
We've talked about this a fair bit.
We certainly
it's
have.
something we talk about a lot. But
It's rare that you find people who you feel like you really gel with musically, and I think a lot of it has to do, at least for me, like with the personal connection. Like chamber music, at least in my mind, is a lot about trust, and without like that sense of trust, it can be hard to really like communicate or build. And I feel like because we all know that there's a lot of like love for each other in the room, and that we are there to support each other. It's it's just a good vibe.
I think when it really works, that is really how it feels. I think there's times where sometimes, it can be not even necessarily that the musicians aren't good musicians. It's just the way that people can communicate through music can be compatible or not compatible, and I feel like finding that fit can be really difficult, but it's really nice when you do find it. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, that environment, I feel like just being able to be myself as a cellist, it actually is very difficult to do with other people. It's a vulnerable thing to do, but I know that these guys are gonna just, give me the space, and I think that makes a huge difference actually playing with them. Yeah.
Folks that are watching that maybe either they could either be young, and which is probably the best time to start to pick up an instrument, or they could be older, and maybe it's never too old to start to learn how to play an instrument. What's some advice?
I feel like I can somewhat relate in just getting into improvising like later in life. I mean, it feels
Especially with jazz.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I had been playing harp for I guess not a long time, but I felt like I was pretty good at it, like not to, be all egoist or anything, but going into college, it's like I feel like I can play the harp like relatively well. And then to be in a new situation where I'm like learning a new language, a new vernacular, like as it pertains to music, like I felt like I sucked. I felt like a baby, like learning a completely new set of, I mean, it really is.
But isn't that the artist? The artist is always thinking they can do better.
I think there are also sort of differences in when you venture into something that feels like quite new. It's like because obviously we all want to get better every day, but to a certain extent, there's a level of knowing what and how to get better. But with some things, it's like I have no idea how to get better. Yeah. So I think I would just say to people who want to pick up a new instrument, just try to be patient with yourself. Recognize that it might take time even before you can make a sound that is at all pleasing to your own ears. And that's completely okay. And that it's actually to be able to learn or like incorporate new information and develop a skill is like something like extremely beautiful and valuable. Just by doing it, it's like part of humanity. We don't like, it's easy to get stuck, and just by challenging yourself to do something new, I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Now, Mina, I know you said that your mom told your dad you never make it as a rock star, but only based on looks, right? So musically, maybe he was fantastic.
Who knows? Yeah, I've heard him sing at karaoke, and he's great. And I feel like some of his mannerisms probably I took on, and I just think that, I feel like being a performer is a very particular career path to take, but that, I feel like everyone who's starting out also can kind of enjoy that feeling of someday I can actually get up there and perform for whoever, and I feel like that kind of gives a little bit of extra excitingness. I feel like every other things we start to learn, like cooking or gardening, we're not going to beat ourselves up about God, I chopped this garlic up wrong or something. But
That's me.
Yeah.
I'm going through that right now.
I feel like music, I often have with beginner students too, they're very hard on themselves for not being able to do it right away, because we listen to so many good music, and a lot of artists out there, it seems so effortless, but it just takes a long time to get to that level. Yeah.
Really, learning never stops.
No. Sort of like this wave of inspiration and feeling like you're getting so much better, and then you just hit and then you just hit a wall.
Definitely.
And you just I've always thought that sometimes the time off is almost as important, or the time away from the specific thing that you're probably overanalyzing. Can be really, really helpful and healing. I think in the last year, I've put myself into the beginner's shoes with Celtic music and fiddling, and I've started going to sessions and things like that in Boston. And I have no background at all in fiddle or folk music, and showing up is really it's really hard to show up somewhere and be like, I have no idea what I'm doing. But the people and the community, especially in Boston, have been like so amazing and like welcoming. And that's been sort of a healing thing for me to sort of learn a different style of music. And you're still learning something about yourself as a musician, even as a classical musician. So for me, sort of, I was feeling a little bit stuck at some point, and this was sort of a way to start feeling unstuck, of just diving into something completely new and trying it, and then coming back to something like this. And it's like, that's been a really great thing for me personally.
Thank you all for joining me here in the studio and kind of finding out about you as musicians individually, and of course about the trio.
Thanks
for
again for
having
having
us.
us.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Yeah.